Welcome and thank you for joining us. I'm Christy Goranson, moderator for this debate featuring the candidates running for Spokane County Commission in District 3. District 3 covers southwest Spokane County, which includes Airway Heights, Medical Lake, and Cheney. It also includes the downtown core of Spokane and the southwest part of the city. The candidates in this race are Robbi Katherine Anthony and Al French. Al French is the incumbent in this race. He's seeking a third term as county commissioner. Robbi Katherine Anthony is the owner of Praxis Co-working and Fire Dove Technology. Welcome to you both.
Welcome.
So for this debate, the candidates will answer questions from a panel of Spokane journalists. We'd like to welcome Sandy Williams. She is the editor and publisher of The Black Lens. Doug Nadvornik, program director and managing editor of Spokane Public Radio, and Amy Edelin, reporter for the City Desk at Spokesman Review. So before we begin, I want to go over a few of the debate rules for our viewers. All of these rules were agreed to prior by the candidates. The candidates will have 1 minute for answers. Each candidate will be allowed 2 rebuttals for the entire debate. Rebuttal length will be limited to 30 seconds. And we are ready. So a coin flip determined that, Al, you'll have the opportunity to answer the first question first, and we'll start with Sandy.
Welcome to both of you. So the first question I want to ask is, what do you see as your role as a county commissioner?
As county commissioner, we're responsible for not only administering the day-to-day functions of Spokane County, but also regional programs, whether it deals with air, water, transportation, a variety of different things, and also working to bring our cities together to work on regional issues and solutions. We are unique in the state of Washington because we are the legislative, we are the executive, and we also serve in a quasi-judicial function with regard to county government. We're the only elected official in the state of Washington that serves all 3 roles, so that you have to have a vast degree of knowledge about a large variety of different issues. Never have I experienced 2 days that are exactly alike. Every morning it's a different challenge, it's a new opportunity to be able to grow this community, to be able to keep our citizens safe, and to make sure that we're good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. So that's a day-to-day function. 2,000 employees, $750 million budget, and we're responsible for all of that.
All right, thank you, Robbi Katherine.
Yeah, the position of the county commissioner, I find it very unique in that it is a executive type position, and with that, it is to be a conduit. Whomever is elected the county commissioner, they're really going to need to be on the ball of being able to listen to others, take information from a great swath of people, and let expertise rise to the top. So they are focused on not only making sure that our county is healthy, but the cities within it are able to cooperate. But ultimately, my belief is that the job is making sure that the greatest level of expertise can rise to the top with the least amount of friction.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Doug?
Ms. Anthony, we'll stay general with the second question. What do you consider the 1 or 2 most pressing priorities for the county over the next year or 2?
Yeah, I believe that the 2 most pressing priorities, first and foremost, is making sure that our budget is sustainable and healthy, and because all roads literally and metaphorically lead back to the budget. So anything we want to do or anything we want to fix is going to start there. And that kind of parlays into the second priority that I'm very passionate about, which is improving the condition of our roads. Not only is it something that affects all of us on a day-to-day basis, but it's a bit of a safety hazard, especially for first responders that need to move as quickly as humanly possible getting down those roads. So those would be the 2. And beyond that, that's where we can start dreaming big as a county, because we can get those simple priorities in line, and then we're able to kind of reach for what our future looks like.
Thank you, Al.
Question again?
Yeah, what are the top 1 or 2 priorities that you think for the county for the next year or 2?
My top priority is keeping you and your family safe. And that's monitoring a criminal justice system that provides equal justice quicker. And it's also working with those folks like Sheriff Ozzie Gunezovich, who has endorsed my race, and first responders like firefighters across this county that have endorsed my race because they know of my commitment to keep you and your family safe. Second, economic development. I've brought thousands of jobs to this community, and I think a healthy economy and a healthy tax base will also provide the revenues necessary for us to provide the services that our citizens want. And third, how do we watch those taxpayer dollars, making sure that a taxpayer gets full value for every dollar that they entrust in us. That's why my experience as both the city and the county leads me to be the best candidate for this race, because I've managed $750 million budgets. I've managed departments. I've worked to improve our roads and balance our budgets. 16 years, always voted for a balanced budget.
All right, Al, you'll take this next question first from Amy.
Commissioner French, the county faced a close to $10 million budget shortfall for its 2018 budget. So are there any areas you see where costs could be cut, or there could be efficiencies that you would put into place to address any future budget shortfalls? And also, would you support implementing a 1% property tax increase to address any budget shortfalls?
A lot of questions there. I'll try and clarify one thing. You know, every budget cycle starts with departments that are giving us their wish list. And then we, as the commissioners, work that wish list down to something the taxpayers can afford. And so the wish list last year started at 9.4. We adopted a balanced budget. We adopted a balanced budget without having to rely on new taxes, and we adopted a balanced budget working within our means. So I'll continue to do that. We were able to use some of our reserves. We were able to reduce some of our expenses. In fact, this year we will come in at about $2 million less than we were projected in expenses because of the efficiencies and the economies that we're continuing to work to put into place to make sure that we can be good stewards of those taxpayer dollars. And so I don't think that the county is in need of any additional revenue, unlike my opponent. I think that we can live within our means and we can provide the services we need. We've got a good economy, we've got a growing economy, and I'm very proud that I've been part of creating that economy for our taxpayers.
Thank you. Robbi Katherine?
So I'll try to work reverse chronologically as well. With respect to the 1% property tax increase, I believe probably the best way to approach that is putting it to the voters. I know it was a year or 2 years ago that was potentially going to happen, and then it got withdrawn. Given how contentious the issue of taxation is, I think that's probably the most equitable way to do it. And certainly there's points for further optimization and refinement, but that has a limitation. There is an asymptote in that. So we are going to have to be able to be open to all options, even if they're politically unpalatable and even if they're difficult ones, but there are going to be points that we're going to have to take the fiscal responsibility into our own hands and acknowledge that we are going to have to make changes.
Right, thank you. So Robbi Katherine, you'll take this next question from Sandy.
So we're talking about budget, and that's an area of focus for county commissioners. So the question is, in terms of a balanced budget, how do you balance the need for making sure the budget is balanced while also representing the needs of people in the community that have been traditionally underserved?
Robbi Katherine, you can take this one.
Sure. So balancing the budget in my mind is not just talking about deep, deep cuts, which are going to disproportionately affect those who have been underserved. It is a combination tactic of those further optimizations, but potentially broadening the tax base if need be. And I think what helps with that even further is that if we are able to get our county into better financial health and we need more tools at our disposal, that's when we're going to be able to work with our state much better. Because we're going to be able to say, hey, we've shown that we're serious. We are doing everything to the maximum of our capacity, but there are still some inherent issues. We have these unfunded mandates. Can you help us? And then we're going to be able to be at the table where it's not just can we, continue to degrade our services. It's about how do we keep them at the functional level in which they assist everyone, but also make sure that we don't overextend ourselves.
Thank you. Al?
So balancing the county budget is a constant challenge because you have the state that's issuing unfunded mandates and you have cities that are annexing areas of our tax base and robbing revenues from us and our ability to provide the financial resources to address some of those needs. What I will continue to do as a member of the Washington State Association of Counties is work with our state legislators to get them to fund their indigent defense, which they should be refunding, not us. That's $6 million of revenue that can come back to this county. Also working with them to eliminate some of these other unfunded mandates. It basically takes our revenues that should be supporting local programs and funding state projects. We need to get the state to be able to step to the table and use their resources to pay for their priorities so we can focus on community priorities.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Al, you'll take this next question from Doug.
So we'll stay sort of on a related tangent. Commissioner, you've talked about your distaste for the state going from requiring the Spokane County to go from 3 commissioners to 5 within the next 4 years or so. You've talked about legal action. Are you serious about Spokane County suing the state in order to stop that action from going forward?
Not only am I serious, but again, the Washington State Association of Counties that I serve on their legislative steering committee for has made this one of their top priorities. And so we will have that conversation at our annual meeting in November, get the board for the Washington State Association to sign on with the litigation, and then we are fully prepared to move forward with that. This violates the Washington State Constitution. It's the first time that the legislature has taken this action against any county. And that's what concerns the association, is that if the legislature can do this to Spokane County, they can do it to other counties, and they've got their own self-interest to protect. Our citizens, by a 55% vote, said no to increasing the board from 3 to 5. That's $500,000 of annual expenses. We talk about unfunded mandates that robs us revenues to meet the needs of our citizens. It's $500,000 that will not be in my budget to service programs and or keep sheriff deputies on the road. I'm going to be paying for 2 more politicians. That's not a good use of taxpayer funds.
So, Ms. Anthony, I'll just restate the question. Do you support the bill that requires Spokane County to go from 3 commissioners to 5 within the next 4 or 5 years?
Absolutely. And the most significant part of that bill is it changes how we vote for our county commissioners. Currently, you vote only district in your primary, and then general goes countywide. And what that creates, what happens is that people of one district cannot get the representation that they want. They can vote for someone entirely else, but if the other districts override it, they're stuck with that person. Going to 5 changes that. Now, if the argument was about just strictly size, if we were able to change the election process, and so it is more fair representatives, without expanding the number, and keeping it at 3, that might be something I'd be very interested in. But 5 is the way to get more equitable representation.
All right, thank you. Robbi Katherine, you have this next question from Amy.
Ms. Anthony, the county is experiencing a need for more housing. However, the county can't expand its urban growth boundary until 2025. At that point, would you support expanding the boundary? And also, how would you advocate for responsible growth and development in the county?
Yeah, I mean, if we are at that point that we need to expand, most certainly. I consider myself a pragmatist. Let's follow the data on this one. In terms of how to accommodate it and do it responsibly, I think more mixed housing options is something that we should be focusing on, not just single dwelling homes. Yes, we want single dwelling homes, but we also want ways for people to move out, from the current living conditions into an in-between step. And when you have more options there and it's a bit more condensed, it's not as great of a tax on our infrastructure. So yes, I would be in favor of it if we were running out of space, which looks like we will be. But let's do it cautiously, let's play it slowly.
All right, thank you. Al?
So the settlement agreement that the county entered into does say that we cannot expand our boundary until 2025, but it does not encumber cities to be able to expand their boundaries and accommodate more growth. And so I've already started the conversation with cities of Airway Heights, City of Spokane, Medical Lake, and Cheney to have that conversation, because all of them have said we couldn't expand our boundary and provide more land for single-family housing. With regard to sprawl and the myth of sprawl, I remind you that Spokane County was ranked as one of the top 10% of counties in the country that institute smart growth development strategies. That was identified by Smart Growth America a couple years ago. So we are growing in a very reasonable, methodical fashion. But because of all the increased growth that we're experiencing here with regard to creation of jobs, and of course I'm very proud of being on the front side of that creation of new jobs for this community, it does put some pressure on us from a housing standpoint. So we'll come together and we'll find a solution for that issue.
All right, Sandy, you have the next question.
So one of the areas I focus on in the community is criminal justice. The county commissioners oversee Spokane detention services. There have been 8 deaths in the Spokane jail in 14 months, the past 14 months. What do you see as the role of county commissioners in addressing these deaths, and what needs to be done that is not currently being done with regard to our criminal justice system?
So these last 4 months have been tragic for not only the families of these individuals, but also for the county, because we're not comfortable with the idea that folks in our custody are either committing suicide or the victims of some other kind of harm. So we have instituted a variety of different programs and reached out to a number of national consultants to come in and give us some suggestions, some advice. How do we change our protocols? How do we increase the access to mental health and medical services within the jail? I mean, we have instituted a program to where now our inmates have access to 24/7 medical care. That didn't happen a couple years ago. We've brought in experts to deal with suicide. How do we prevent that? Keep in mind that folks that end up in jail are suffering medically before they ever get to the jail. And so we're then responsible for how do we treat that? How do we provide the medication necessary to get them stable until they leave the jail?
Right, Robbi Katherine?
In terms of what the county should be doing in terms of responding to those 8 deaths, it's going to require a incredibly high level of transparency, truly being open. And that's not necessarily for the purpose of atonement, but it is giving the members of our community that have been affected by that, the dignity to be able to see the end of that and understand what happened. And when we have all that information out there, we're going to be able to source more information from different individuals. Consultants are great, but there's also organizations such as I Did the Time that just came up, and other organizations that just have an incredible wealth of information that can give us a much better indicator as to what happened. We can postulate what's going on, but it would behoove us as a county if we listen to the people who've had that one-to-one experience and take from them suggestions that are ultimately going to bring that number of deaths to 0, because that's the goal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
So, Ms. Anthony, following on Sandy's question regarding there's a quite a schism between people who believe there's the need for more jail space in Spokane County and the people who believe that there isn't, that so many of these other programs are better. Do you support the county building a new jail?
Not at this juncture in time. And again, leaning on my pragmatic nature, if we truly hit the point that we've done everything we can, we're at maximum capacity, then yes, we need to consider that. That is just a statement of fact at that point. But prior to making an incredibly expensive investment, we need to make sure that we find that every other attempt to keep people out of the system, reduce recidivism, divert people, has been fully maximized. So I think it's a pretty costly investment, and we are at a crisis point right now, and building on the problem is just going to exacerbate it and kick the can down the road. We cannot do that.
Okay, Commissioner.
Our current jail is 35 years old. It was designed to handle 462 inmates. We have times where it's well over 900 inmates. It doesn't have the technologies necessary to efficiently manage those that are in detention. We've already identified that this jail, through its inefficiencies, is costing our taxpayers $4 million a year because of the additional manpower required to keep it a safe environment. A new jail would allow us to be able to reduce that operating budget and put that $4 million into programs. I strongly believe and support in diversionary programs. The last place I want somebody is in the jail. If we have somebody with mental health challenge, let's get them therapy. Substance abuse, get them therapy. If they're just in bad times and find themselves on the wrong side of the law, that doesn't make them criminals. So how do we provide the support mechanism to be able to make them contributing members of our community? Those are the kinds of programs we're already investing in and seeing very great success.
All right, Amy.
I would like to know what's your stance on the proposed sale of Avista to Hydro One, and is this an issue that commissioners should be involved in?
And now you can take this one first.
So I support the sale. Avista is ranked as one of the top 50 utilities that is vulnerable for acquisition, and whether it's acquired by Hydro One or acquired by a corporation out of Texas or Florida, they're at risk. And so the deal that Scott Morris and his team has been able to negotiate allows that headquarters to stay here and not in Florida. It allows those investments in economic development and the leadership and the contributions they make to programs within this community to be made here at the local level and not somewhere else. I think they've negotiated a very good deal for the community as well as for the stockholders, and I do support them moving forward. Now, with regard to county commissioners being involved in it, this is outside of our purview. This is under the jurisdiction of the Washington Utilities Commission, not county commissioners. And I know that there's a county treasurer that's asserting a different position, and he's just uninformed about the law and uninformed about the benefits that'll come from this for the community.
Robbi Katherine?
Yeah, I am cautiously optimistic about the sale. It seems that the ball is more or less in motion already, so we should probably continue to work to seek additional insights and answers as the process evolves. But in terms of if the county commissioners have jurisdiction, I just find that curious that allegedly they don't, because Avista just made 2 independent expenditures to the tune of $100,000 to my opponent and Mary Cuney. So that's the same amount of money that most people raise for the entirety of these races. So if they don't have jurisdiction, that's fine. It just, the question is why? And that's what I'd be seeking to understand further.
Right, and Al would like to use a rebuttal.
So Avista has been a supporter of my campaigns going back to my city council days. So this is not a new relationship or anything else. They've been there since 2001. Now, their investment in my campaign, I think, reflects the fact that I've been on the front side of economic development and bringing new businesses into the service area that they serve. And they see that as a value, not only to their stockholders, but also to this community at large. More and better paying jobs is what I have a track record of bringing, and they see that, they value it, and they want to make sure that it continues, and it won't under my opponent's leadership.
All right, Robbi Katherine, you'll take this next question from Sandy.
So one of the areas that the Black Lens focuses on is racial disparities in Spokane. Spokane faces racial disparities in criminal justice, education, housing, healthcare, and employment. What are your thoughts on the role, if any, that a county commissioner can play in addressing those disparities?
Yeah, so I believe the root of most of those disparities start at our criminal justice system. So when you see communities that are disproportionately incarcerated, they are having to deal with the circumstances, it makes it harder for them to be able to get a job. It makes your housing options much more difficult. And that is just it has this ripple effect that can really upend people's lives. So from the perspective of a county commissioner, that's the area that we can really focus on, and making sure that we have tools in our criminal justice system to try to erode the disparity. I believe it's a safer tool that was being developed. I think that's a positive step forward, but ensuring that before that catastrophic ripple of being incarcerated happens, we can blunt it before it even begins.
Thank you.
I think racial discrimination goes well beyond the criminal justice system. I think it's systemic in our community. And I think one of the things county commissioners can do is lead by example and say that this kind of conduct is not tolerable in Spokane County. Several months ago, I started to reach out to the faith-based community and other members in the racial communities to be able to start bringing folks together and have a conversation about this condition exists. How do we start to turn the tide? How do we acknowledge that we have not been equal to all of those members of our community and change the dialogue, change outcomes? Keep in mind that Spokane County was the first local jurisdiction to adopt the ban the box policy, because we did not think that people coming in to work for Spokane County should be carrying the burden of past actions that they've already served their time on. They've already met the obligations of the community. So how do we create an environment that's welcoming, open, honest, and fair and equal for all? And we can lead by example.
Thank you.
We are going to do one more question. We'll limit your answer, though, to 30 seconds this time. Al, you'll answer this one first from Doug.
So I'm curious about your position on Initiative 1634, which essentially is would ban local governments from being able to impose food-related taxes. What are your thoughts about that?
I do not support putting a tax on food. I mean, that's sales tax are regressive to begin with, but then to burden especially low-income families with robbing them of revenue that should be putting food on their table, to put it in government's hands, absolutely wrong.
Robbi Katherine?
So that initiative is a direct response to when Seattle put in a sugar tax on soda. And that initiative is being fully funded by Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and a couple other mega drink maker conglomerates. So to frame it as a grocery tax is, in my opinion, the wrong optics. No one wants to put a tax on vegetables. Is there room for a sugar tax, like the other sin taxes that we have? This initiative would take that off the table. So I am in favor of it, and it's not a grocery tax.
All right, thank you. Well, that'll have to be the last question, and it's time now for closing statements. And before the debate, we flipped a coin, and Al, you'll go first.
I want to thank KSPS for the opportunity to provide this debate and help inform the voters. I also want to thank the voters for providing me the privilege of serving you for these last 7.5 years as your county commissioner. I'm very humbled by the opportunity to serve. Every promise I've made to the voters, I've kept. I've worked to be a good steward of your taxpayer dollars. I've worked to bring good and better paying jobs to this community. I've worked to try and keep you and your family members safe, and I want to continue that path to success for the next 4 years. There are a lot of good things that we've laid the foundation for economic development and for prosperity in this community, and that's prosperity for all. And I want to continue to build on that foundation we've created, to work to create more jobs like we did with Amazon and several other companies that have now committed to come to Spokane County, and provide the opportunity to raise the tide for all folks in this community, provide better quality living and also better wages for everybody to enjoy, so everybody can enjoy the quality of life we have in Spokane County. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Robbi Katherine.
I'd like to thank the people of Spokane County for considering me as a potential conduit for their highest hopes, ideals, and our shared values. It's truly one of the highest honors of my life. I'm a different kind of candidate trying to bring a different perspective to our local government, one that raises pragmatism as the absolute, someone that is more focused on doing a sterling job for 4 years without an attachment to a political career. My campaign has not taken money from any organization. That includes PACs, corporate entities, unions. I have even declined mutual advertising efforts with my own party. My only allegiance is to the people of Spokane County. Democrat, Republican, or Independent, I believe we are all pragmatists at the core. And it is with that, I believe it is time that we elect different. And I hope on November 6th you consider voting for Robbi Katherine Anthony.
Well, that will do it for our debate. Our thanks to the candidates, Robbi Katherine Anthony and Al French. Thank you very much. And also our thanks as well to our journalists, Sandy Williams, Doug Navornik, and Amy Edelin. Thank you so much. KSPS has a complete lineup of debates this election season. Check out the rest of our coverage at ksps.org and look for the Election 2018 icon. For all of us at KSPS, thanks for watching.